Rashidale again. Welcome to Dharma Sharing. I hope you have been doing well and you have enough time to go through the book that what we have studied so far. It is always good to recall and review whatever we have learned so that it will stick in our mind. That is why whenever we study, we need to have a habit of reading the books again and again. Repetition makes things closer to our consciousness. That is why, remember, we repeat many mantras in our practice, idam practice. That why we repeat mantras so often is then because if you are repeating again and again, then it will become closer to your consciousness. Then it will stick in your consciousness, so you can remember them every time. And the essence of the Dharma or essence of the mantra for the benefit of yourself and others. Likewise, in the study of the Dharma as well, we need to read the instructions again and again, and by that you'll be able to remember them, the meaning, and it will be easier for you to contemplate the meaning of the Dharma. And once it sticks in your mind, then it will it will be always there with you. So you do not really need to rely upon books, because the instructions, the message of the Buddha, those beautiful instructions will be in your mind. So any time where you want to remember them or recall them and reflect on them and then put them into practice, is always very convenient. So therefore it is advisable for us to read the instructions again and again whenever you have time. And reading Dhamma books and reading general books are different, I think, from my point of view. And the more you read the Dhamma books, the deeper understanding you will get. Each time you will have different kind of insight that will develop by reading the Dharma books. Whereas if you read the general book describing our social systems or planets and so forth, these books, when you read once, that's enough. I think you will get information. There's no much deeper meaning. But whereas in the reading of the Dharma text or Dharma book, each time you will develop kind of insight within yourself. So that is very wonderful thing to do. So I encourage you to do the same. Okay. So before we start today, we need to recite ravish prayers and followed by the generations of bodhicitta. Sangye Jodang Sangye Jonam La Janjo Bado Dani Gyapson Je Dagye Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sangye Dobaresho Sangye Jodang Sangye Jonam La Janjo Bado Dani Gyapson Je Dagye Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sangye Dobaresho Sangye Jodang Sangye Jonam La Janjo Bado Dani Gyapson Je Dagye Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Dolha Benjer Sangye Dobara Sho Semje Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyudan Dembara Gyoje Donga Dan Donga Gyudan Dewa Gyoje Donga Mebe Dewa Nambada Midawa Gyoje Ngiren Jada Ngidan Dave Danyam Jembola Nebara Gyoje Semje Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyudan Dembara Gyoje Donga Dan Donga Gyudan Dewa Gyoje Donga Mebe Dewa Nambada Midawa Gyoje Ngiren Jada Ngidan Dave Danyam Jembola Nebara Gyoje Semje Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyudan Dembara Gyoje Donga Dan Donga Gyudan Dewa Gyoje Donga Mebe Dewa Nambada Midawa Gyoje Ngiren Jada Ngidan Dave Danyam Jembola Nebara Gyoje Omenje Ge Inge Bodana Desum Sangye Gunge Ngo Ransim Chokuro Nguzum Denzeba Sabe Lame Jabla Gwe. So we are now trying to understand the trainings in the engaged bodhicitta, those trainings that one need to apply. We need to train in those trainings in order to accomplish our wish, the very wish to attain to complete and perfect enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is our main wish or ambition, main aim of the bodhicitta. So in order to accomplish this genuine wish or aim, we need to apply the remedies. And these very 6 paramitas are the very remedy that will lead us to the complete and perfect enlightenment. And these are the antidotes to our negative afflictions and emotions. So we'll be able to free ourselves from different types of negative afflictions and emotions, which are the origin or the cause of our suffering. So if any individual who would like to free themselves from the suffering of samsara, they first need to understand that they need to free themselves from the origin or the cause of suffering. And in order to free ourselves from the cause of suffering, we need to apply the remedy. And the very remedy for them is the training of the bodhicitta, especially trainings in the engaged bodhicitta. Obviously, aspirations bodhi is needed. That is the main kind of cause. But only having aspirations bodhicitta will not be able to bring our fruition. So therefore, we need to engage in the trainings of these actions bodhicitta. So therefore, we are now trying to understand what are those different types of trainings, and they are known as 6 paramitas. And among these 6 paramitas, we are now talking about the generosity, the first paramita. Okay, Buddha said that the generosity is the main cause for accumulations of wealth. If someone would like to have good wealth, or wish to have good or many wealth, or become wealthy, then they must practice generosity. This is the main cause for accumulations of wealth. And we understood that there are 3 different types of generosity: giving wealth, giving fearlessness or protection, and giving the Dharma. So these 3 are equally important. So whichever individual who would like to practice the generosity, you can practice any of these 3 generosities. If you have good wealth, loss of wealth, you practice generosity of giving wealth. If you do not have wealth, don't worry, you still can practice the second and third type of generosity, which are known as the giving fearlessness and giving the Dharma. So you may not have much wealth, but you may have good ideas. You may have not much wealth, but you may have you are very physically very strong, that you will be able to give help to someone in need, fearlessness. And likewise, you may not have so much wealth, but then you can still benefit sentient beings with your sharing of your good ideas, with your knowledge, and especially the knowledge of Dharma. That will be wonderful. That is what many different Dharma teachers they are doing. They may not have much wealth, but then because of their sharing of their Dharma, they are able to benefit so many beings, especially so many beings who are in the help of some kind of relief from the mental sorrows. So these are very relevant, very beneficial for them to free them from these present conditions of suffering. So therefore, you can apply any 3 kinds of generosity, whatever possible, whenever possible. You should not hesitate of practicing the first paramita. And there's a story, one time when Buddha was in India, many times people visit Buddha, every time they having lots of problems, pain, suffering, so they always go to Buddha, and they will always have an answer for their suffering from Buddha. They will be always enlightened by Buddha's words of wisdom. So there was one day when one beggar went to see Buddha, and since he is beggar, he was a little bit shy and embarrassed to see and visit Buddha. But then he slowly went, and when he went to Buddha, he was feeling very peaceful, because Buddha obviously will have lots of compassion towards all sentient beings. So he stood in front of Buddha, and he asked Buddha, and looking at the Buddha's face, and he said, "Buddha, why I am very poor? Why I don't have any wealth?" And then Buddha smiled and said, because you do not practice giving, you do not practice generosity. And out of surprise, and he thought he's beggar, so how can he give? Then he asked Buddha, well, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you enlighten me? I don't have anything. I'm beggar, so how can I practice generosity? And then Buddha smiled and said, no, you have many things that you can share with others. In fact, you have 5 jewels within yourself that you can share with others. There are 5 jewels in your body that you can share with others and practice generosity. And then, out of his surprise, he didn't have any money, any wealth whatsoever. Then he asked, what does that mean? Then Buddha, taught him what are those 5 different types of jewels that he can share and become wealthy in the future. So Buddha said, yes, you can. You have these 5 jewels, and the first one is your face. You have this face that you can give a smile to others. You can give a pure and genuine smile to others. And this very smile, when people see your smile, it will relieve someone's stress. It will relieve someone's disappointments or worrisome and so forth. Your very smile can change someone's day. So Buddha said, yes, you have this first jewel, the Ratna, that you can share with others by just giving them a very pure, genuine smile. And the second, Buddha said, and the second Ratna or the jewel you have is your lips. You can speak nice words of others. You can proclaim good qualities of other people. Obviously people, since we are in this samsara of desire, so obviously people feel so happy when they hear good things about them, praising, proclaiming their qualities, or giving such kind of inspirational speeches, encouraging speeches. So these lips, you can use these lips and share good words and proclaiming good qualities of others, or just by saying good qualities of your friends or your teachers, showing them the example of your teacher's compassionate act through your lips, telling them a story of the Buddha, Bodhisattva, and so forth. This will be also very beneficial for someone who are in need of help, of relieving from the suffering of samsara. So this very lip is very useful if you speak soft, nice, gentle, and praise others' quality, praise others' involvement of good deeds, good actions. So this is you can do. So this is the second type of Ratna or jewel that you can share with others. Then Buddha said, thought is your eyes. You can, use these eyes. You can look all other beings with compassion through your eyes. People can have lots of good effects, but just by seeing, just by having a compassionate eyes looking towards sentient beings, those who are feeling under the pressure of suffering, those who are disappointed, you are able to share their sorrows, through just by sitting with them and looking at them through compassionate eyes. This very act will be also a very good remedy for healing their sufferings. So this is the third type of Ratna that you have, you can share with others. Okay. Then Buddha said, the next is your mind. This very mind of you can make good aspirations for others. You can, if you see people are suffering, you can make prayers to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, a genuine prayer, for the peace and happiness and harmonies in the society, to dispelling the obstacles in the society, to dispel wars and disputes and quarrels that are taking place in the earth. So you can, through your mind, you can make lots of good wishes. You can have aspirations, bodhicitta. You can pray, all sentient beings be free from suffering and cause of suffering. You can pray all sentient beings may have the happiness and cause of happiness through your pure mind, pure motivation. So this is what you can do. And finally, the fifth Ratna that you have is your body. This very body, you can help others, protect others from, natural disasters or wild animals or thieves, whatever possibilities are there. You can protect them through your very body, this very body that you have. Then the beggar was so amazed and was deeply touched by Buddha's word of wisdom, and he really thought, yes, in fact, I do have all these possibilities, and then I never thought of these possibilities, And then I was always wondering myself, always feeling very sad that I'm poor, I don't have wealth, always complaining that I'm poor and I don't have any wealth. But in fact, Buddha enlightened this beggar by showing him that he has all these 5 Ratnas, all these possibilities, that if he shared this with others, he will be a great benefactor without even having a single penny in his pocket. Isn't this wonderful? So this story tells us that we have lots of opportunities, we have lots of abilities, but we don't see them. We always see opportunity something elsewhere. We always see and believe that external things are important. External phenomena, wealth, money, these are important. But we always forget that the money that we have, the Ratna, the jewel that we have within ourselves, that we can benefit ourselves and so many other beings around us. So this story tells us that we have all the possibilities, we have all the abilities. So therefore, we should utilize this, Ratnas, these opportunities for the benefit of yourself and others. We should not be discouraged by not having external wealth. You have all these possibilities within yourself that you can always share with others, that you can always protect others from, harms and so forth. So that is why we always should remember this, that we have these 5 Ratnas within ourselves, that we can benefit ourselves and others, especially others in this case, as because we are practicing bodhicitta, we are walking on the path of bodhisattvas, the bodhisattva's way of life. Okay. Having said that, now we are going to continue from where we left last time. So to present this first dana paramita, the paramita, first paramita of generosity, GAMPOPA presents this through 7 different topics. The first one is reflections on the faults and virtues of the generosity, then definitions of generosity, then classifications of generosity, then characteristics of each of those classifications, then how to increase generosity, then perfections of generosity, and finally the results of generosity. So he presents this first topic of generosity through these 7 different topics, and among all this we have completed till the 5th, how to increase generosity. Now today we are going to talk about the last 2, perfections of generosity and result of generosity. Perfections of practicing generosity. How can we make our generosity a perfect one? There's a difference, generosity and perfected generosity, or perfections of generosity. Generosity is just giving, but if you add the perfect word before that, it will be like perfected generosity, or in other words, it will be dana paramita. if you do not have paramita and only dana or giving, that will be ordinary giving. So today we are going to study how our ordinary giving can transform into perfect giving. In other words, how our dana can become dana paramita. Okay, this is very interesting and important too. We usually practice generosity, but not necessarily this generosity can be called perfect generosity or paramita. So the sixth topic here is about perfections of generosity. So I'll read this. Concerning the perfect purifications of generosity, the collections of the transcendent instruction says, if one acts with emptiness and essence of compassion, all the merit will be purified. So how can you make your ordinary generosity into perfected generosity? Is through two means. You need to practice generosity with emptiness and compassion. You need to have these two factors. If you are lacking these two factors, then your generosity can be normal or ordinary mundane generosity. Whereas if you are able to practice generosity with the idea of emptiness and having the essence of compassion, then that very act of generosity can transform into, super mundane generosity. Generosity of perfectness or dana paramita. So this is the difference between the two. Okay? So for now, ordinary being, our act of generosity may have compassion, but we're always lacking the understanding or the realizations of emptiness nature. That is why we always feel that, yes, I did this. I offer so much money to the beggars. I offer food to the beggars. I offer food, clothing, shelters to the beggars. I offer incense, flowers, and dana to the sanghas or the Buddhas or to the temple. So this I, feeling of I, the doer, the actor, we have this clinging of self without knowing its non-existent nature or emptiness nature of the doer. Likewise, act itself, I offer this amount of money, this amount of food, this number of blankets and so forth. So you have another clinging for the subject, substance that you're offering. So therefore you are not free again from the nature of emptiness. You are you still believe that the item that you are giving do really exist as it appears. Then you have this receiver, I have given to those people. You can always label, So you have these three spheres all the time within yourself. You have these perceptions of these three spheres as something real, existent thing. So if you are not free from this, then your generosity can only be a mundane or local or ordinary generosity, not perfected generosity yet. So now we know we need to have two factors in order to call our act of generosity a completed or perfected generosity or dana paramita. Okay? When these generosity practice are supported by emptiness, they will not become the cause of samsara. So when you are aware of its true nature of emptiness, then you practice generosity, then your act of generosity will not be the cause of samsara. Whereas our mundane generosity will be the cause of samsara, because you are still lacking the true nature. Yes, you are practicing generosity, you are benefiting so many sentient beings, you are ceasing so many suffering of others, you are becoming a good benefactor. But if you are lacking of the true nature of emptiness, then this act are only the cause for another good human life or another wealth in still remaining in samsara. So you're not free from samsara yet. Yes, it is good merits, accumulations of good merits, but yet it is not accumulations of wisdom. So in order to free ourselves from the samsara and the chain of samsara, the cause of suffering, we need to free ourselves from both, two obstacles or obscurations. So, and we need to complete two accumulations. So if you are lacking either one of them, you will not be able to free yourself from samsara. When they are supported, when these generosity acts are supported by compassion, they will not become the cause of lesser vehicle. That's true, right? So when you have compassion in your heart, when you have bodhicitta, then you are free from lower vehicles, because you have no idea of self benefits. So this is how our act of generosity should be. They will become the cause only for achievement of non-abiding nirvana. Therefore, they are pure. So if you have these two factors, then your generosity will be pure and perfect one, paramita. Supported by emptiness means, according to Ratna Sutta requested sutra, that the practice of generosity should be stamped by the 4 seals of emptiness. So how we know that our act of generosity is perfected generosity is through 2 factors. Our generosity should have wisdom, that is wisdom of knowing the emptiness nature, and accompanied by compassion. These 2 factors. And the first factor, how can we know whether our act of generosity is with wisdom of emptiness or not, is through these 4 seals. So we can see whether our act of generosity do have 4 seals of emptiness or not. So what are those 4 seals then? Okay, the first one should be sealed by the pervading emptiness of our inner body. So that means you as an actor, you as a benefactor, you as a practitioner of first paramita, you should realize that these 5 skandhas, 5 aggregates, are nature of emptiness. If you have this seal, if you are stamped by this seal, then you have the first seal of emptiness. Likewise, sealed by the emptiness of outer wealth, the very act that you are doing, either it is wealth that you are sharing, either it is the fearlessness or protection that you are giving, either it is the dharma teaching that you are sharing, all this act, it should also be stamped by emptiness, which means that the wealth that you are sharing to others, this wealth also is the nature of emptiness. This wealth, so-called wealth, money, this also do not exist as its own entity. It does not have its own existence. It comes and appears with lots of cause and conditions, with lots of composite things together. So if you have that idea, then you are free from that fixation or attachment towards that particular item or substance. Then the third seal is sealed by emptiness, sealed by the emptiness of subjective mind. Then you as an actor, you have this body and you have this mind. So you should also be free from the clinging of self, or the idea of I or me or my. We usually recognize ourselves as I to our mind, but in reality checking, in fact, you can't really find where this I really is. So this so-called I is also a nature of emptiness. It doesn't exist as its own nature. It appears because of different causes and conditions. So therefore, your act of generosity, your mind, that the mind of that actor who is practicing generosity, also should be understood as the nature of emptiness. This is the third sealed of emptiness. And finally, this sealed by the emptiness of Dharma of enlightenment. So all the phenomena, including the recipient of your act of generosity, you should see all of them as the nature of emptiness. So if you are able to have all these four understandings of emptiness, then your act of generosity can be called perfect and pure generosity. And this understanding and realization will be the main cause for our perfect liberation. This is one factor. Okay. Second one is generosity supported by compassion. What does this mean? It means that giving wealth, protections, or dharma, education, sharing items, because you cannot bear the suffering of others. Either it's individual suffering or suffering of general sentient beings. Because you cannot bear of suffering of others. You are always, so compassionate. You always want to see sentient beings free from suffering and have this happiness. So this is what it means by your act of generosity accompanied or supported by compassion. Otherwise, if you do not have compassion and if you just give, that will be just giving, but not the bodhisattva way of giving. If you just give without compassion, it may turn into business, give and take idea, so to speak. So there are lots of different risks that can involve if you are lacking these two factors. One, if you are lacking of the true understanding of the true nature of emptiness, then you may give rise to ego. You may give rise to arrogance, become arrogance. You may think that you are the most superior one, you are the great benefactor, and others are inferior and all. So there are lots of different risks that can happen. Involvement of lots of negative afflictions and emotions will take place. If those negative afflictions and emotions do take place, well, the act of generosity, then your generosity is not so meaningful. It can be the cause for another samsara, another rebirth in the 6 realms. So if you are wishing for another good realm in the 6 realms, to be born in this one of the 6 realms, then you are still under the ignorance of samsara. You are still under the delusions of samsara, and you are not free from suffering yet. So therefore we should have the discriminating knowledge of knowing that how can our practice of generosity be complete and perfected one. Okay. Then next, the final topic of the presentations of this first paramita is the result. So what will be the results of practicing your generosity? Obviously, if you know the result, you'll be more impressed. You'll be more encouraged to practice the generosity after knowing its beneficial effects, the result, isn't it? Whatever act we do, we first want to know what is the result, right? What is its beneficial effects are. So once we know the beneficial effect of that act, then we, effortlessly, with joyfulness, we will apply those paths that will lead us to that perfection. So here as well, the result. One should understand the result of generosity in the ultimate and conventional state. So 2 levels. The practice of generosity, the results of practicing generosity in the conventional level or relative level, you will experience so and so. And in the ultimate level, you will experience so and so. So this is very important to have this kind of knowledge, the beneficial effects of practicing generosity. Here it do mention 2 types of results that one will be able to witness by practicing the first paramita, the dana paramita. Okay. The ultimate result of practicing the first paramita is that one achieves unsurpassable enlightenment. Obviously, our ultimate goal is the attainment of complete and perfect Buddhahood. That is why we are applying these trainings, these 6 trainings of engaged bodhicitta. Our target, our main aim is to attain complete and perfect Buddhahood for the benefit of others, obviously. So obviously in the ultimate level you'll be able to achieve Buddhahood. But before that, in the conventional level or relative level too, you'll be experiencing lots of good beneficial effects of practicing generosity. In the second one, in the conventional state too, one will gain prosperity through the practice of giving wealth. As Buddha mentions that if you want to wish to have good wealth, you need to practice generosity, because generosity is the cause for accumulations of wealth. So therefore, in the conventional level, obviously you will be experiencing wealth, good company, people praising you, having good kind of friendly environment. These are good qualities, results of practicing generosity. And this will come by practicing generosity. The wealth will people will offer you the wealth. You witness your increasement of wealth. And here it says, even if one does not wish it, even the practitioner doesn't wish or doesn't have any expectation while he or she is practicing generosity, but as the consequences of that act, naturally you will be experiencing good wealth, good company, people respecting you, people offering you. If you are offering to others out of compassion, and people do see this good act and they really appreciate and they will contribute. And this is how your act of compassion and generosity will flourish, will become more and more, can expand. So therefore, this is how charity organizations, dharma organizations, dharma centers, to flourish, because the main aim is not considerations of their own benefit. Their main aim is to benefit others with pure motivation. Therefore, other people will see this and they will rejoice in your good act and they will contribute. So this is how your act of generosity will, flourish and will be more and more beneficial for others, for healing the suffering of others in conventional level as well. Day-to-day life, you are able to free someone's thirst, hunger, and satisfy them with food and drinks, shelter, clothing, so on and so forth. These are very practical. So this will happen because of practicing generosity. Furthermore, one can gather trainees through generosity and connect them with the enlightenment. Obviously, then while they participate in the giving act of generosity, and then they will be interested to know why we are acting this paramita. Then you tell them why it is important to practice generosity, what did Buddha said about it, how many bodhisattvas in the past have practiced generosity, and what kind of result they have achieved. So if you try to tell these stories, this is also one way of generosity, by sharing the Dharma. And this is how you can mature these sentient beings. You can bring them closer to enlightenment. You can bring them closer to first paramita, and by doing so you'll be able to help them to free themselves from the stinginess, jealousy, pride, and so forth. And this is a wonderful thing to do. You are really benefiting someone else just by with your act of generosity, and they participating. And while you are walking on the path of generosity, you are teaching them the importance of generosity, and this can change their mind and attitude, and they can also slowly release themselves from stinginess. They can release themselves from desire of wealth and all, and then they can slowly release themselves from the ego clinging, pride, and if you are able to do so, this is really the teachings of the Dharma. You are really benefiting others, not only benefiting their temporarily hunger and thirst, but at the same time, you are really benefiting them by enlightening them, by giving them these beautiful instructions of the Dharma. Thereby, they will understand this nature of act of generosity, importance of generosity, and they will slowly understand the disadvantages of stinginess, jealousy, desire, and this is how they can free themselves from the cause of suffering, these negative affections and emotions. This is what we call Dharma. This is what we call change. This is what we call transformation. And if you are able to do this, you are really practicing the Dharma without any expectation, without any considerations of your name, fame, and wealth. Purely, completely, honestly having pure motivation, wanting to see others being happy and cannot bear to see the suffering of others. This should be the act of Bodhisattva, and we should encourage ourselves to walk towards that path which leads us to complete and perfect happiness, and which will free us from this change of suffering of samsara. Okay? So, the condensed perfections of Wisdom Sutra says, the generosity of Bodhisattva cuts off rebirth as a hungry ghost. Obviously, you are practicing generosity, so you are trying to, liberate yourself from stinginess. And once you are liberated from stinginess, you do not need to experience the suffering of hungry ghosts. Likewise, poverty and all the afflicting emotions are cut off. So you will have more wealth, therefore you are no more poor now. And obviously remember the story that I mentioned earlier. Even though you do not have any wealth, you have 5 other jewels within yourself that you can always share for the benefit of others. And by sharing so, you will be experiencing good, company, good merits, happier life, and slowly wealth too. And also it will cut off all the afflicting emotions like stinginess, pride, jealousy, and attachment to the wealth, so on and so forth. By acting well, by practicing the generosity perfectly, one will achieve infinite wealth well in the Bodhisattva's life, because practicing generosity is the main cause of accumulations of wealth. And fully mature all sentient beings, all suffering sentient beings through the practice of generosity. Yes, because of your generosity, you will be able to free many sentient beings who are suffering of hunger, thirst, poverty, illness, both physical illness and mental illnesses. So therefore, this is wonderful result of practicing generosity. Bodhisattva Bhumi says this is additional beneficial effects or the results of practicing generosity. One will become strong by giving food. So if you want to be strong physically, then you should give food, as it says here. One will achieve good complexion by giving clothes. So if you want to become, good complexion, good face, good looking face, then you are encouraged to practice giving clothes to others. Likewise, one will become stable by giving conveniences. Stable meaning mentally stable or physically stable, and also stable in your educations or business, company, so on and so forth. And one will have good eyesight by giving lamps. So if you need to have good eyesight, then you need to offer more lamps, do more lamp offering prayers. Obviously, the main reason of lamp offering is to, by that lighting the lamp, you will clarify all the ignorance of sentient beings. That's the main purposes. But in the compassion level too, if you want to have a good eyesight, then you need to offer more lamps, butter lamps. It can be butter lamps or electronic lamps. Nowadays, electronic lamps are also very, very good, because when you have butter lamp, usually you see flies coming in and they die there, so sometimes it's not so good. But you have electronic lamps nowadays, then it's very good. You have the same motivation, same aspirations of by lighting that electronic lamp, dispelling all the ignorance of sentient beings, and then give rise to wisdom. Likewise, giving fearlessness, the second type of generosity, one will be unassailable or unable to attack by obstacles and maras. So when you practice the giving of fearlessness, you will have less obstacles, so to speak. The precious jewel garland says, by giving fearlessness to those who are in fear, one will be unassailable by all the maras. So you cannot be defeated by maras. You cannot be defeated maras by their obstacles, and will become supremely powerful mentally and physically. Then the last type of generosity, by giving the Dharma teachings, one will meet the Buddha swiftly, because whatever you are teaching is the instructions of Buddha himself. So if you are able to practice what Buddha practiced in the past, then obviously you will become closer to Buddha. So that is why it means here, by giving Dharma teachings, one will meet Buddha swiftly and will accompany Buddha and achieve all that one desires, especially our desire of attainment of Buddhahood for the benefit of others. Okay, the precious jewel garland says, giving Dharma teachings to those who listen causes obscurations to be dispelled, and one will accompany all the Buddhas, and one will quickly achieve all that one desires, the complete and perfect enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, obviously. This is the 12th chapter dealing with the perfections of generosity from the jewel ornament of liberation, the wish-fulfilling gem of noble teachings. So this completes the first paramita, describing of first paramita, definitions of first paramita, classifications of first paramita, characteristics of classifications of first paramita, what are good qualities of first paramita, how can our paramita be perfected, how can we make our paramita a perfect and pure one, how can we increase our paramita practice, and what are the benefits of practicing paramita, and what are the disadvantages of not practicing the first paramita. So this all concludes the presentations on the first paramita by GAMPOPA in this chapter, the chapter 12. Okay, so since we all also have few more minutes, I will continue to go to the second chapter the second paramita, which is in chapter 13, the perfections of moral ethics. So the second paramita is Shila paramita in Sanskrit. Shila, as I mentioned a few days back, meaning a kind of coolness. And why we call Shila or cool is because up to now, our involvement in non-virtuous act of body, speech and mind, we have never disciplined ourselves. We have never kept moral ethics. We have never valued moral ethics. And because of that, we have engaged in so many non-virtuous acts through our body, speech and mind, just like stealing, killing, sexual misconduct, telling lie, using divisive speeches, quarreling, fighting, holding up ill will mind, jealousy, wrong view. Because of all this, we have involvement in all these different non-virtuous acts. We have been suffering a lot. And now, when we hear the second paramita practice, how to stop from involving in those non-virtuous acts, how to discipline yourself, how to refrain from involvement in this non-virtuous act, because these non-virtuous acts are the cause for our suffering, obviously. So until we stop this cause, we will experience suffering. That's why it's called suffering of change of suffering of samsara. And we say suffering is always not pleasant. It's always sorrow. It's always difficult. It's always unfavorable. So now when we practice the second paramita, then you are stopping all these things. You are refraining from all this involvement of non-virtuous act. And this is the break, a break from suffering. And when you have break from suffering, is cool, is gentleness, is coolness, is happiness, is calmness. That's why Shila paramita, a break from the suffering, a break from the involvement of non-virtuous act, which are the cause of our suffering. So if you understand this second paramita and implement the instructions that are mentioned in second paramita, Shila paramita, then you will break through. You will make a big stop of experiencing suffering and involving in the cause of suffering. That's why it's known as Shila, or the coolness from suffering. Taking a break from suffering and enjoying the coolness, enjoying the gentleness, enjoying the stable and calm abiding state of mind. That's why Shila paramita. Okay. Shila is kind of internal awareness or internal ethical behavior according to one's commitment to the path of liberation. That means, from today I will stop killing. Kind of commitment that should come within ourselves, not by force of external phenomena, but within ourselves, with our full awareness, with our full understanding of the importance of practicing Shila paramita. That's why it is kind of internal awareness and internal ethical behavior. For what purpose? According to one's commitment to the path of liberation. I don't want to suffer again. So therefore, from today, with my full understanding and awareness, I will stop killing, which is the cause of suffering. And then keeping that commitment internally with full mindfulness and being careful, after that kind of commitment, and being careful not to kill anyone, even by accident. this kind of sincerity, this kind of awareness within ourselves, that is known as Shila Paramita. So this is something good that we need to do. Otherwise, you may have faith and devotions to Dharma, but then in actual fact, you are not practicing any kind of training. Then that is just lip service of becoming Buddhist or chanting prayers, but not actually practicing these trainings, not actually stopping yourself from the involvement of killing, telling lies, stealing, involvement in sexual misconduct, having the thought of ill willness, jealousy, wrong view. So this, if you keep doing this, then you will never get break from this suffering, and you will never experience Shila or coolness. You'll be always suffering and sweating and feeling tired of suffering, because you are continuing involvement in the cause of suffering. And that's what Buddha wants us to know. He hit us. If you don't want to experience suffering, then please do not involve in the committing of the cause of suffering. Those are known as 10 non-virtuous acts. If you want to call it from systematic way of Buddhist presentation, 10 non-virtuous acts. You need to refrain ourselves from the involvement of 10 non-virtuous acts, and you should encourage yourself to act in the virtuous act. Your body, your speech, your mind, all these 3 doors need to convert towards the virtuous act, virtuous thinking, virtuous speaking, virtuous act. Then only you can call yourself a practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner. What happens is, that most of the time people want to have happiness. People like Buddha. People like Buddha's teaching. People like Dharma teachers, Dharma teachings. Want to visit monasteries, Dharma centers, which is very good. But then, when they go back to their life, do they really practice 10 virtues? Do they really refrain themselves from involvement in the 10 non-virtues? That's the question. Do they really keep commitment of not killing, not telling lie, not stealing, and so forth? Or they are just doing this for few hours or few days by taking Sojong vows, or few weeks being in retreat? Partimoksha vow here says we need to keep this for our one lifetime. This is how we can secure ourselves from falling to the lower realms and experiencing these different types of sufferings in lower realms. Partimoksha vow encourages us that we need to keep this commitment of not killing, not telling lie, not involving in sexual misconduct, not telling lie, not using divisive speech, not using harsh words, not using meaningless speeches, and not holding ill will, not having jealous, and not holding wrong view, until we die. And if you are able to do so, then you are secure, then you are protected, then you are protected from falling into lower realms. And if you are protected from falling in lower realms, then you don't need to experience those sufferings of lower realms. That's logical. But the question is, how many of us, we call ourselves Buddhists, how many of us really kept that commitment of not falling, not involving in 10 non-virtues? So this should be our homework. Okay, so this is a slight touch for the second paramita, that's Shila Paramita. And we are now running out of time, so we'll keep here for today, and we'll continue the second paramita in our next session. Thank you very much for your participation. We shall dedicate the good merits for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sonam de tamje zeba nye tomne ngebe danam pamje ne gega naje balav trubai sibe solen dowa do. Remember the 5 jewels that you have, 5 ratnas. Thank you.